Thank you, Dr. Fendler, for that great presentation. The next talk is actually all the way from the US. We've had a US international in person, Professor Thomas Hope from UCSF, who's a nuclear medicine lead and chair of that program. And the talk is entitled Spoilt for Choice, Ga-68 PSMA F-18 DCFPyL and F-18 PSMA1007. Is there a difference? And after this talk, you can ignore my question on the Q&A because it's probably be answered.
Now you make me wonder what the question is in Q&A, huh? Well, it's lovely to go after Dr. Fendler. It's been an interesting number of years here and great to be with people who I've met in Zoom world and obviously before then and see where this field's come with all these people we've collaborated with over the years. So it's been a really wonderful path, and I'm just obviously very happy to be able to make it here in person. And Michael, for you for inviting me and hosting me, and it's been really wonderful. So I was asked to give a talk called Spoilt for Choice. In essence, do any of these different PSMA radiopharmaceuticals make a difference? And to a certain extent, the answer is, I find the question of is there a difference not that interesting compared to the last talk, what was just presented by Wolf. Those are the questions that really make a big difference clinically, and hopefully by the end of this we'll highlight a few differences, but this is really not where we should be spending our time anymore, is worrying about how does A versus B differ. They're minimal, and hopefully we'll end this talk by agreeing upon that and move on to actually the clinically important questions, which we'll actually do research on moving forward. So I'm not sure if I'm required to put disclosures, but I'm so used to putting disclosures in. That's San Francisco, another beautiful town in the world. So just to remind ourselves, there's a lot of these agents, and they all actually look very similar. So if you remember, this urea motif is sort of the backbone of all PSMA PET radiopharmaceuticals, and they have different chelators. So PSMA-617 has a DOTA chelator. For the few radiologists in the house, that's the same that's used for Dotarum. I don't actually know if they call that the same drug. It's a gadolinium-based MR contrast agent, the exact same molecule. And then you have DCFPyL, which is fluorinated, HBED-CC, PSMA-11, a different chelator that works great with gallium up in the top left. PSMA1007 is also fluorinated and has a motif that will bind a little bit of albumin that's lipophilic, so it gets cleared by the kidneys, as you'll see. And then RHPSMA-17, which is a little odd because it has both a DOTA chelator and is fluorinated. So the idea there is that you might be able to, I don't know why you'd actually want to do that, but image it with fluorine and actually treat someone with lutetium simultaneously, whatever the use is for that. Now, these are actually all in or completed phase 3 trials in the United States. So DCFPyL, PSMA-11, and PSMA-617, bottom rows, all FDA approved. 1007's in phase 3 trials, RHPSMA-7's in phase 3 trials. So there's going to be not just spoil for choice with DCFPyL versus PSMA-11 in the United States, but a whole other set of these compounds is coming down the road. And to me, when I think about the difference between these, it's about biodistribution, right? They have the same binding moiety, and so it's the chelator that's going to change their biodistribution slightly. So you can see PSMA-11 on the left and DCFPyL. Those actually have very similar biodistributions, right? They're both predominantly renally excreted. PSMA-1007, you can see the liver, very hot, right? So it's got hepatobiliary clearance. The idea here is, and they chose this image obviously because you can see local recurrence potentially better because there's no radioactivity getting cleared through the bladder. On the far right, you have RHPSMA-7, which I have no experience with, so I have to rely on the literature and Matthias Eiber in terms of what to think about it. But in this setting, there's a little more hepatobiliary clearance. It's not as much as you see with PSMA-1007, but you can see there's much less activity in the renal collecting system. And so as we gain more experience, it'll be interesting to see if it ends up being sort of an in-between between 1007 and PSMA-11. But in general, in terms of their ability to detect disease, they seem to be all very similar. The predictive value, the sensitivities, stratified by PSA are very similar, and it's just the biodistribution that ends up being different.